Yeah, welcome to the first webinar of the Circularity Principles for Facade Engineering. Thank you for joining so far. We'll make a start. I'll start by saying, yeah, here we will record this Zoom session and post it later for anyone who can't make it. So if you don't want to be part of the recording, just simply turn off your microphone and camera. But you can still interact by being in the Zoom chat and things like that. So yeah, it will be recorded and then posted later if you want to view it. Uh, cool. So basically today's webinar, we'll just go through and introduce who we are and a little bit about sort of what we've done so far to where we are halfway through the course. And then we'll go into a bit of everyone's assignments and things like that. At the moment, we haven't had any questions in the discussion forum, but if you still have questions, we'll have question time at the end and you can discuss anything. And it's an open chat. So if you feel like you want to say something, just put your hand up in the Zoom chat and we can arrange that as we go. Cool. So here's the course theme. You can see me and Bernadette in the video, but here we are. This is
Hi.
just what's on the website. Yeah, I'm Nathan. I'm a facade engineer and I study at TU Darmstadt doing my master's. I'm originally from Australia where I did my bachelor's there and then worked as a facade engineer. And yeah, so here I am now. And Bernadette, you happy with your description? Anything to add?
Oh, I can say a few words. Hi, also from me. Thank you for joining our first webinar. Hi, I'm Bernadette. I'm a researcher and PhD candidate at the Institute for Structural Mechanics and Design at the TU Darmstadt. And yeah, you can already read in the text, I'm doing a lot with climate resilience, energy efficient building solutions, and I'm very curious about circularity solutions. And I'm very curious to see what solutions you come up with. And yeah, I'm very excited for our first webinar.
Cool. Let's
Should we
continue.
move on? Yeah. So,
We also
so
have Miran and Isabel. They aren't here today, but have been quite involved in making the course. So they'll be online answering questions as well at times, but unfortunately can't make it today.
so Isabel is a colleague of mine at the TU Darmstadt, and Miran is a senior researcher at Eudac Research, which is in Bolzano in Italy.
Mhm. Cool. So to begin with, the first module we had was just a, I guess, basic module to introduce some of the concepts that we have with circularity and especially in facades, because there's a lot of terminology to, I guess, get your head around. Um, yeah, we talked a bit about life cycle thinking, material use, things like that, and the links of different stakeholders in circularity. And then there was the videos with Miran and the team at URAC where they had a look at a, I guess, pretty typical system that you would see in Europe. And I guess just analyzed a bit of about how that might be together and what materials are involved. And then we received your assignments for the local facade where you discuss the materials in that, which
Mhm.
is this one here. And so I guess it's probably a good time to have a look at the assignments, Bernadette.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, let's see if this works. Is that still sharing? Yeah, it is.
I can see it. Yeah. So,
Perfect.
like Nathan said, the first assignment was more of a teaching you to look behind the facade, behind the first layer to really understand, okay, how is this facade built? What materials are coming together? And how are they connected? Are they glued together? Are they screwed together? What is their connection? And how can we then in a later point in the next assignments maybe deselect or dismount this whole facade. So this is quite a good first start to understand facades and go to the basics. And then in the next assignments, we build upon these examples. And in the final, I would say exam, you will then design your own facade. So we're coming from analyzing and then we do the transfer to your own design. So yeah, Nathan, should we just start with the first assignment that we
Start.
see here?
Yep. And I can see, is it Mirdas? Am I pronouncing that correct? Yep.
If you want, you can also maybe quickly explain your facade, say some words, but you don't have to. It's, yeah, however
Hey
you want.
everyone, am I audible?
Yes,
Yep.
we can hear you.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Mirdaz. I'm working as a design technician at Thor Precast. We made this building. So we were the brick and face. We are like experienced experts in the brick faced facades.
Mhm.
Yeah, and this was one of the available I can share with the whole team, like one of the projects, because I don't have the permission to share all the drawings or anything with you guys. That's why I chosen this one. This building is in currently in London, and I think Nathan already shown a good video, like from Columinium website, the window contractors for this project.
I think Nathan, if you found that video, you showed it to me.
Yeah. If anyone else would
Yeah.
like to see the video, it's in the sketch drive as well. In the
Mhm.
comment here. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Mirdas, for your interesting prefabricated project. And of course, you don't need to share the details. Of course, you can also share different drawings if you want to. But of course, I understand that yeah, sometimes we can't share everything that we would like to share.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's very interesting because especially prefabricated modules can support circularity because the potential for the demountability and they allow for a controlled reuse. So you're not just recycling the small materials, not just the single brick, but maybe you can reuse the whole facade plate in a different project. This is quite interesting. But then, yeah, it depends on the future use, of course, for the new project or the quality of the modules. And of course, how are the modules mounted, connected to each other? Can you maybe share a little bit about that?
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't have permission for that.
Okay,
It's fair.
then we're just gonna talk a little bit about it. That's totally fine. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think it's a very interesting project to see how the whole system can be reused. Just one thing that I noticed, I really like the project. With the brick, don't forget there's also mortar included. So if you want to reuse the brick, you need to probably detach it from the mortar. Just a slight note that I noticed.
I think I can add something to that. We already
Mhm.
use if the project is big and we are only showing the one side of the brick, okay, then we will cut the brick into two so we can use that both sides. Yeah, the whole
Yeah.
brick we can cut into two and we use it.
Mhm.
Cool.
I,
Like a brick slip system, would it be called, or
Yeah.
something like this? Cool. They're quite big panels.
yeah.
Very heavy. Cool.
Yeah, thank you, Mirdis. Nathan, did you
Okay.
have some comments or some thoughts?
No, I think I can't remember it. I'm just reading back on my comments here. Oh yes, I just said from a disassembly point of view, it's quite interesting as the whole panel with precast concrete is tricky, but as Bernadette said, when you have the full panel, you can, if you can reuse the whole panel, and it's relatively perfect.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the only comment I had. That and just how big the panels are is quite amazing. Yeah.
And then maybe we can go into different business models like renting a facade and things like that that come up. But I think this is a video for later on. Maybe I'm spoiling
I
some
think so.
some
I think
information
that's
already.
I think
Okay,
so.
then maybe move to the next project before I say too much. But thank you again. Nice project. Oh, and then another one, very interesting design. Nadar Mahood, are you here? Maybe I can look into the.
I think not in the names.
Mhm. I also can see them. Nathan, do you want to maybe do a quick summary and then I can share some thoughts?
Yeah, well, Nada has posted this relatively interesting building. It's
Mhm.
pretty bespoke in Saudi Arabia. It looks like from the drawing they've got the old building. I don't know if you can see my mouse yet. The old, I guess, heritage library in the center, and they've completely encapsulated the building within another building by the looks of things. So it has an entire glass structure in beside behind this textile facade. Um, my only question to Nada was, which I wasn't sure whether it was the textile was purely a sun shading element or if it had some sort of ventilation function. I'm not sure if the glass facade behind is completely sealed and it has mechanical ventilation, or if it's in some way allowing airflow through the building. I wasn't sure, but
Mhm.
I mean, from an architectural point of view, it's a very interesting building, I think.
Yeah, but I liked that you pointed out. Oh, someone unmuted him or her.
Oh, I was just thinking I was just gonna think out loud, given that it's in Saudi Arabia and I grew up in the Middle East, I think it would be pretty unlikely that it would allow external ventilation, just given the climate.
Yeah, true.
But probably the shading is a major benefit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you for your comment. Of course, this is something that we also wanted to say in this webinar. Me, of course, Nathan is from Australia, but I'm from Germany. I'm quite Eurocentric, everything that I learned. So I'm very curious on all the different examples from around the world. And of course, comments like that from people who lived in different countries with different climate zones, because this is just something that's very important. We can't just have the same building in every climate zone. And yeah, just one thought. So thank you for your comment on that. And also for everyone else, if you have a thought, just unmute yourself, say something, and then we can discuss or talk about it together. But one thing, Nathan, that you said about the material, I also had a question about that. I will probably just write a comment. I was wondering about more details about the material, especially the textile membrane, and what about the supporting structure behind it? That will probably enhance the material analysis a lot to understand how the whole system is pulled together. Um, yeah, but in general, this light, yeah, maybe not really lightweight, but more lightweightier system is quite interesting in terms of disassembly. And I mean, if you don't glue it, I'm I'm very happy already because then you can detach it or disassembly a bit easier. But of course, not every system is designed for disassembly practices. So this could be very interesting to understand. Okay, is it really possible to dismount it, disassemble it, and then build it up in a different place, or do we really need to scrap it down to the material level again and then create something new about that from that? So I think this is maybe a thought to think about. But yeah, I'm already happy that it's
Maybe,
not glued to me
maybe,
say it like that.
maybe Nada has the answers in her next assignments.
Hopefully, yeah. We don't want to spoil anything, but you will see probably this building again.
And I think I can't remember if there was any other questions in the comments.
Can't remember.
No, that was basically it, I think.
Mhm.
But I wasn't too sure what the exact textile material was. I tried googling it as well, but very quickly, and didn't find an answer besides just that it's textile. But
Textile can mean anything.
yeah, but it was very interesting.
Yeah.
I like that they haven't touched the old building and left it in there as well.
Yeah, sometimes you don't need to replace the whole building. Sometimes you can just build a building around the building. I think in module 4, we'll have an example of, about this concept. So
Ah, yes, with Irving.
I'm giving too many spoilers. I just
Yeah, yeah.
go to the next one.
Cool.
Yeah,
And
perfect.
this next one was from Partridge in Namibia.
Yeah, just gonna have a
This
quick
was
glance. I don't think that he's present, so maybe we can just talk about it again.
I've also just realized that the question I asked was relating to the cladding, but it's answered in here. So
Oh.
can ignore that question. But
Yeah, in German we have the saying, if you can read, you are, yeah, you have an advantage.
but Matteo had the question here of, are you aware of different materials that were added to this facade because of the semi-arid conditions or rainy seasons that would differ from other type of similar constructions?
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm interested to see the answer here. I couldn't think of an answer myself
Um,
of what would differ. The only thing I thought was that the the frame itself is not a thermally broken frame, which obviously isn't the best for thermal performance, but I guess that maybe the issue of like dew point and moisture isn't such an issue in a drier, I guess, rather warmer place than say Germany. That was the only thing I could think of that might address that question. But
To be honest, I would have wished that Hedrich would be here because I have some questions because it was a bit hard for me to read the text. And I also had questions like which sealant was used because depending on which sealant, is it recyclable, is it not recyclable? And also the question regarding the, can you scroll down a little bit so I can see the question or the group can see the question again? Yeah, here. Of course, I can just speak for the European side. Yes, it depends on which material you use, and it depends on the durability of the material. If we're then going into assessment tools like LCAs or material flow analysis, things like that, where we also need to assess the time that this material can still provide its function in the facade, is it totally depends on the outer circumstances. I mean, if you have a high humidity rate in the outer climate, of course, your material will be different or will be different after 20 years than if you have a more drier climate. So this is one thing that I'm thinking of if I see a question like that, that it depends on the time the material can still provide its function. And this is the question that we have. A facade, of course, it's something beautiful and aesthetic that we can look at, but in the end, it must fulfill a function. And the question is, what is the function in this country? What is the function of this facade? And then is it still possible to provide that after 20 years? And then, of course, we start to open a different topic. Does it need to provide the function for 20 years? For example, if we just need to build a stall, for example, for a conference that just needs to last for 2 weeks, then maybe we don't need a system that can be that can provide the function for 100 years. And then we start to go into more of a design part, but I'm just noticing I'm differing into too many topics and we have too many more assessments. I'm just looking at my notes, what I wrote into that. Yeah, one thing that I added was also the powder-coated aluminum for the windows is contributing to circularity because it has a high recyclability rate and it maintains its material quality through the whole recycling process. Of course, we haven't talked about the energy part of that, but just from the material in itself, it can be reused a lot of times. And yeah, and then I'm sorry, I had a little bit of difficulties reading the text. But yeah, I will probably write a comment about that, and then maybe Pedrich can answer that in the assignment.
Cool. Continuing on. I think you're here, yes?
I am, yes.
Chini, is it?
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, it's Chini, yes.
Cool. If you feel like it,
hi.
you can talk about this project if you want to.
Yeah. Well, one, I'm partly disappointed I didn't put a project that my company is working on, but because I think that would make for a much better final project. But I took the assignment of a facade you need to visit locally like far too seriously. So I reached out to my friend who's the architect for this building and got a bunch of details. Because I also don't know how a sketch would have done justice to this assignment. Anyway, so it's a fairly typical storefront. With aluminum and glass and gaskets, so it's pretty similar to the curtain wall that my company works on as well. It's thermally broken, so I wonder how that will affect the recyclability of glass of the aluminum. And will it just be separated, or will it just kind of burn off when the aluminum is resmelted? I don't actually know the answer to that. I focused a lot on the second assignment on aluminum and glass, and in terms of the challenges, but yeah, I think this is interesting to me because I feel like it already is designed for disassembly. Like if you take out the gasket and you take out the glass, you can disassemble the whole frame. So I'm interested to see what other improvements can be made to the system.
Yeah, cool. I think that's the exact same point that I had with this system. It is quite nice because you can disassemble it very easily.
Mhm.
And yeah, as you said, like you just pull out the gasket and you can replace the glass. You don't need to replace the system just to replace the glass. Is something that I really
Mhm.
like. And for me, this detail is much more common where I'm from. So yeah, it was interesting to see this. The other thing that I thought was, is this rammed earth, do you think, in the photo here?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Is this rammed earth here? I can't really tell from the photo, but I can't see any joints.
No,
Do you know what this material is?
it's a kind of stone. I do have the whole submittal with me that I could kind of look through. But it's a kind of like stone cladding. And again, at the start of this course, I could only think of facades in terms of aluminum glass because that's what I've been doing for a decade. And
Yeah,
then as I saw some of the other assignments come in, I was like, no, 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 wait, it's all facade. So that's been an interesting growth point for me.
cool.
Yeah, but
It's
it's some kind of stone cladding, essentially.
it's also
Yeah.
good that you didn't pick one of your own projects because in the later
Yeah.
assignments you can pull them apart, and this way you
Yeah.
get to pull
Mhm.
someone else's project apart rather than your
It's
own.
That's true.
There's
But
also something in there, but I'm satisfied. Yeah.
Yeah.
as for the question with I'm not too sure with what happens with the thermal break when they would recycle this. I'm not sure if Bernadette, you have an idea whether it
Um,
would be removed or, as you said, burnt off.
I'm trying to remember my interview with Martin because we talked about windows and glass a lot. Of
Mhm.
course, aluminum it's melted down and then it will just burn off, but it would be nicer to get it out again. Um, yeah, I'm trying to remember
It
what
wasn't
we talked
mentioned in the
about.
interview.
It wasn't mentioned. Okay, then maybe I shouldn't remember anymore because that is not there. But
Um,
yeah, probably my first guess would be burned off, but this is not something that we want. We want to get every material that we use in our facade out again, or just,
mhm,
I mean, like in the prefabricated example before, have it as a whole system. That's also fine. If we can reuse
mhm,
that 50 more times in the future, that's also a good
mhm,
solution. But yeah,
mhm.
my first guess would be it will probably just be burned off. But I can have a look and then give you a comment if I find something about that. Or also reach out to Martin. Maybe he has a good idea about that. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
note it down for me and ask Martin about
And
that.
the other question that comes to mind is the fasteners into the screw races. Um, there's some destructive aspect of ramming the fasteners into the screw races. Does that render the extrusion unusable after a certain amount of times? Um, can the fasteners themselves be reused because they're the harder material? Do we need to cut off the portion just because it won't have the same amount of strength if you keep I don't know, wearing down the screw race. So that's just something else that I'm thinking about.
That's a very good question because this is exactly what I want every learner here to learn. It highly depends on what we do. We have different options that we can fasten it together. And it depends on what type of fastening do we use, what type of now I'm missing the English word. How much do we destroy our
Mm-hmm.
product? Is it possible to maybe have a fastening system that is deconstructible? It highly
Mm-hmm.
depends on what you have. And sometimes a project that we're having right now is about wood. And then it,
Mm-hmm.
of course, if you screw something in your wood plane, you have a hole. And it's pretty hard to fill it again and get the whole structure full again, and
Mm-hmm.
then you just cut it off. But there are different systems, like of course you cut a hole in, and then you have a
Shredded.
yeah, like a pre thing put in, and then
Mm-hmm.
you screw it in, and then maybe you can use the same panel again and again and again because you're not hurting the structure. So it
Yeah.
depends on where do you screw it in, how do you screw it in, and those are the tiny details that make a facade circular or not circular. And it's very interesting that just maybe a tiny thought at the beginning of the design can change the whole life of your facade. And this is something that I'm very curious about what is possible in different facade designs. And you can also be very creative about it. So maybe in the next few assignments, you can maybe also focus directly on this part. And then in the final
Mm-hmm.
design, maybe design a better system that addresses directly this issue of your facade. But like I said, you can be totally creative about every solution. And yeah, just have fun with it. I think that's the most important part, because if you have fun, you can think about new solutions that maybe no one else has thought about. And then we, yeah, get
Yeah.
more and more ideas.
While I still have the mic, I had a question about assignments. It does have us self-grade ourselves, which I'm like happy to do. But on top of that, will you guys also review it and kind of give us some feedback? Because I don't want me to be like, okay, I'm perfect and that's my assignment.
Yes,
Yeah.
we will give you feedback. Yeah, especially for the final part, the final assignment. This is something that is in structure rated through and through. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, we will give you more comments about the assignments and talk about it more. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's correct, is that the self-grading is more for the later form of the course when it's self-paced, I think. Is that correct,
Yes.
Bernadette? Yeah.
Yeah. But the final exam will still be supervision graded, if I'm remembering correctly,
Yeah.
even after it's self-paced.
Oh, okay, great. Cool. Any more questions?
Doesn't look like it. But thank you for your submission.
I think
Any
there was a
questions?
question about shading devices inside, which was answered on the inside. But we can continue on for time's sake.
Mhm.
This one was
Oh.
from Dernal.
Mhm. You know, here I had the same question like the one project before. Something about the silicon sealing and how it's recyclable. No, we can talk about the.
Yep. Oh, back to this one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's just something that I'm always thinking about, that it's, oh, just use silicon to seal it off. But then it's the question, and recycle it? Is it possible? And the question is, in theory, it is possible to recycle silicon, but because silicon has so many formulations, so many different formulations, you need to have a very selective sorting process. And then, I mean, it's not really feasible to do it. If you have maybe a very big project where you can gather the same formulation of silicon, maybe it could be possible, but still then you need to find someone who can recycle that for you. But this is something that I always see in designs like that, silicon, and I'm always thinking like, oh, how can you recycle it? Of course. And then going on. But now I think I talked again a lot. Donal, are you here?
I don't
Can you see
think
him?
so.
Yeah.
I don't think he is. But this is a project this is very similar to the example we were going to do for our template, but then we changed from memory. So we originally had the Glass Competence Center facade in TU Darmstadt as our facade, but we thought it was a bit trickier to explain. So it's nice that he's presented it in a very nice drawing for us. But yeah, my comment was it looks, once you solve this question of what you do with the silicon, it to me is once you have that removed, it has this toggle fixing, and the replacement of the glass panels is relatively easy, I would imagine. And that was my question back to Dernal.
Yeah, and again, we have aluminum, which is good for recycling. Of course, taking the energy question out of the solution again. And yeah, the one thing that I'm always thinking, like I said before, is silicon, if I see examples like that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, is the question, is there a good alternative? Or do we just need to make silicon recycling even more feasible? Or is there different ways to find a solution? But this is one of the biggest questions that I have if I see an example like that. But yeah, like you said, it also reminded me of the first idea that we had for an example.
It's also good because it's not a structural silicon, so at least it's not gluing the facade to the aluminium, at least. It's still a mechanical fixing. I think we have one more from Matteo.
Yeah, the colorful one.
I don't think Matteo is here either. But this was a nice submission as well. And I guess because it was the first post, it had quite a bit of discussion in the comments as well, which was nice. But yes, he has posted this from the Netherlands with the brick facade on the outside, the insulation between, and some cast in place concrete at the back. A lot of the questions were, if I zoom out, related to how this brick is connected to the casting place concrete. I think
Yes.
if we go, yeah, this was your question here, Ginny. The question is about the connections. How are the various materials connected to each other? Are there some steel brackets to anchor the brick? So Matteo responded and said that they should be mechanical, but wasn't sure whether the insulation was glued to the concrete itself or whether it was mechanically fixed. And I guess it could be both. At a guess, but we've posted this detail in the chat, which, just speculating, could be the detail similar to what they've used with concrete in place of the blocks here. And so, yeah, you can see that it still has this mechanical fixing for the bricks into the mortar. And then this is holding the insulation in place. So it would indicate that once you have this removed, you can remove the insulation. But it's just a question of if there's a damage scenario for the insulation, you can't get there without removing the brick. So it's more of an end of life solution rather than while it's in service.
So, question about, I'm not familiar with this form of construction at all. Are the sections of brick wall built and then anchored, and then another section is built and then anchored? So is it like prefab, like sections of brick wall, or are they individually laid on site?
My guess, I'm not too sure with this one. It's hard to tell, but I would imagine this is done on site.
Okay.
It can be both, to be honest.
Yeah, I think the example we had before at the very top is obviously, it's not the same method, but it's in some ways, I would imagine, similar, but it's done as a precast element. But it's brick slip, so it's a little bit different. But here, I would imagine, because from this photo, you can't see any visible lines to indicate that there's a different panel. So my guess would be that it's done on site and that they would just go back to this detail, or they would have their casting place concrete, fix this insulation as they go up, and then just connect these little brackets, I guess we'll call them, as they go. So that's pretty standard. How I think in module 3 we have the brick veneer as well. It's a similar concept where you would still put your fixing for the brick as you go up. So you would do your lines of brick and then put another fixing in as you need, and then there's standards on that. Is how I believe it would go. But it could be both. You could do this as a precast panel, I'd imagine, and have something in, but a precast panel would probably be more, guessing here, but along the brick slip
Oh, yeah, that's a good example.
direction.
Yeah.
Where maybe this shows it. Whereas we saw before, the bricks were cut in half into a small panel and sort of made as almost like a tile, I believe is how they work. I'm not too familiar with brick slip.
I was just curious about how the dead load of the brick was considered. Is it all dead loaded at the bottom, or were there like intermediate spots? And yeah, I was just curious, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. It could, depending on how tall the building is, it could maybe be all at the bottom, but it could also, I think if you have a level, sometimes you can put I don't know if lintel's the right word, I think it's the wrong word, but a support for each level, perhaps, is how you could do it on a larger building as well.
Yeah, very
I think
interesting.
that's, but it is interesting. The other thing I found very interesting with this was the Netherlands seems to have a smaller brick to what I'm familiar with. And in my experience with working with bricks to recycle, often it's dependent on how hard your mortar is rather than how hard the brick is sometimes. Like when you're breaking the mortar off, you often just break bricks unless you have a special equipment. So my question back was whether there are, how common recycling is in the Netherlands. I'm not sure of.
I would say quite
bricks.
high.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just whether they have a lot of breakage cases.
But even then, maybe you can do something new out of that. It totally depends on what is your function afterwards. Of course, you want to still keep it in one solid form so you can reuse it for the same function and you're not downcycling. But yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you also have the brick
Yeah,
pit? Yeah, you
yeah.
have an
This
example.
was the other example that I wanted to share is a company that I'm familiar with in Sydney that recycle bricks directly. They have a machine they call the Alpha Dog. I'm not sure what it actually is. I haven't been to their yard, but it apparently cleans bricks away from the mortar. And so when you buy bricks with them, you are able to specify more of a range of the color you want rather than specifically the color. And it's becoming quite popular because I guess clients are able to showcase that they're recycling. It's, I don't want to say they're greenwashing, but they are recycling, but it's something that you can visibly see, and it's quite a trend, I would say. But it's really nice, and it's a good way to reuse bricks.
But I would
Yeah,
also say it's just an aesthetic choice. I
yeah,
mean, it can
definitely.
also be just aesthetically pleasing to see different colors or different gradients of bricks in your facade. But if I remember correctly, you can also buy um, kind of the same color rich brick
Yeah,
types
I
again.
believe that's how they
So,
operate, is you sort of
mhm.
say reddish bricks or something along
Yeah,
those lines, and you pay depending on, I guess, your requirements. If you don't really
yeah,
care, then what you want. So paving bricks, obviously bricks that have been damaged in the recycling probably go towards this sort of area. But it's quite an interesting reuse strategy, I think. And this strategy thing has been, I think they've been around for quite a long time. So yeah, 45 years of recycling bricks. So this is something that's purely just been around and has proved that the model works and it's quite popular. Slightly more expensive than a normal brick, but I mean the architectural value is definitely there.
yeah. Maybe just one more comment to your 3D module that you showed before.
Mhm.
Can you go back? Yeah. Um, One thing that you just shouldn't forget about is, of course, those bases, those tape joints, those dowels that keep everything together. If you're not gluing it together, of course, you also need to think about, okay, how can you recycle that? If it's maybe a plastic that you can recycle again, of course, then you can put it back with an R strategy into the life cycle. But just not forget those tiny things or the tape. What happens with that afterwards? Do you need to throw it away? Is there any kind of possibility to recycle it? And there it highly depends on what material is it. And those are like tiny decisions that we need to make at the beginning of our design to make the whole system, yeah, circular in the end, and not just maybe 80%, but maybe 99% circular. Just a tiny comment that I had, but yeah, I really like the brick pit example because I just like the aesthetic of the different colors. But
Yeah, they
yeah,
look
this
great, don't
is
they?
something, yeah, my personal opinion.
Cool. So I think that's the end of the assignment ones.
Mhm.
Um, Judging by the time, we probably won't go through the other assignments, Bernadette. We
Um,
only have an hour session, I believe.
yeah, I would probably just give a longer comment to those assignments, and
Yeah.
then we can chat in the comment. But you can also just reach out to us if you have more questions, or if you're in the middle of an assignment and think like, oh, is this maybe a good idea? Just reach out. We're happy to help.
Cool. So you want to, and we'll discuss module. You'll make a comment on assignment two as a
Yeah.
more general
Oh
note.
yeah, yeah. The general note. Yeah, I already said it a little bit in the beginning of our webinar. Um, we are aware that, for example, Nathan is from Australia and I'm from Germany, and almost just had experience with Eurocentric projects. So this is, of course, also an opportunity for us to learn from you guys from around the world what is happening in different part of the country. So Assignment 2 and Assignment 3 were especially for the challenges and circularity principles or projects that happen in different part of the country to, of course, on the one hand, inform us, oh, what happens in your country, but also to inform the other learners what happens in a different country, because we are aware that we are teaching you a more Eurocentric way of building circular. But we want to be, of course, open-minded and see different parts of the world and also talk about it with you and learn from you. And then we learn from each other. that's always a good thing. Do you have anything, Nathan? You're looking at me.
No, sorry, I was no, I don't. I think it's been really nice so far. I mean, it was really cool to see all the engagement in the assignment one sketch drive,
Yes,
and
very nice.
to just see these details, like for instance, the detail in the US was something I was familiar with, but I haven't seen it since I've been in Europe, and it's interesting to just see what details are used where and what systems are popular. It's really cool, and I think as time goes on and more people join the course at a self-paced rate, it'll be a nice thing to come back to and just to be able to catalog all these different designs. I think it'll be really cool. And also it'll be very exciting with the last assignments when we actually get to think about
Yes.
solutions. So I think that's something as well.
I'm very much looking forward to the final exam assignment, because there, of course, now you can already be very creative with your assessments and your analysis. But especially there, you are transferring everything that you're learning in the 5 modules before into your own design. And I'm very looking forward to that, to see I love when people have good creative ideas and come up with new solutions, because this is what, being circular is also about, being creative with the things that we already have and seeing how we can improve our systems.
Cool. And I
And
guess we have 10 or 15 more minutes left. Should we dedicate this time to questions if anyone has any questions?
that's a good point.
I think, as I said before, I believe the discussions doesn't at the moment have any questions, but if people still have questions and would like to ask me now, then feel free to do so. Otherwise, is there anything else that you would like to address in this webinar day?
Not that I can think of, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe in a few seconds I can think of something. Of course, if you have questions regarding the exercise or specific questions regarding the things that Miran, for example, did, or Isabel, just reach out and we can answer, of course, also. We're not just answering in the webinars, we're also answering in mail form. We can say it like that.
Cool.
But yeah, I think there are no discussions.
No.
Really, yeah.
So I guess if there's no more questions, or if no one has any questions, I guess we can end it early, or if anyone else would like to say something, or
Could we look through like one of the assignment too, just
yeah,
for
of course.
curiosity? Like yeah, I'm curious about the one from Ireland mostly because I'm interested. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Never mind. I thought I had suggested a design solution with like whole sketch and everything, but I don't see it. So
Oh
that's fine.
Unless it
maybe
comes
in
up
a
here.
different one.
It was the one with the toggle, so I was so sure it was Donald's.
Yeah.
But it's all good. I'll go at it again. I just have to find it.
Weird.
Yeah.
Well,
Something that I
check it again, Nathan, because I'm seeing the number 2 next to the comments. Maybe there's wait, I can join.
Oh, sorry, I saw what you meant.
Go down here. Maybe there's something with the news first. Maybe we can.
No, I think it's still just the one
Okay,
response.
then it's just one. Okay, that's weird.
We can ask Bay, our edX expert, after this and see if something's been lost in here. Otherwise, I hope you still have the sketch.
Yeah.
You could repost it.
Yeah. I mean, I have it in front of me, but also I can also post it and then we can pick it up another time. But if you want, I do have it in front of me.
I mean, if you can just talk about it, please.
Yeah. I'd have to grab the screen. Let me see if it will allow me. It does. Okay. So this was my thought on replacing the structural silicone Well, actually, I was confused, Nathan, when you said that the glass was in structurally silicone to the extrusion because I had assumed it was. And I was wondering if we could somehow attach like a dead load hook and a wind load hook to the glass and then have it hook on to the extrusion and then just have a very minimal weather seal. And then the more I've been thinking about it, I've been wondering if we could, if I do see, let's change the color of this. Instead of gluing this hook on, which would make it even more difficult, I do see handrail glass sometimes with these big bolts that go through the glass. So yeah, some kind of hook-on system for glass, essentially.
Yeah.
As yeah, because I've seen that toggle system before. Our sister company Gartner uses that system a lot, and structural sealant has been so popular with architects over the last 10 years.
Yeah. Is structural sealant something that's quite popular in the US? You're in the US, correct?
It's so popular. 10 years
Yeah.
back, we were doing projects with captured systems because architects really liked that like pretty band of metal. But now it's the I saw the gradual change. I saw it go from four side captured to two side captured. So it was kind of like a ribbon effect to now every single project is structurally sealed.
Yeah.
For the past 10 years, I haven't seen one that's been captured.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
Is
the
it
same
just
for
an
me in Australia.
architectural choice? Or
it would seem that way.
okay.
And now the big trend is big terracotta panels. So it's been interesting to see these trends. But as facade designers, if we could sell alternate solutions to architects or get them back on board.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to know, is circularity much of a discussion within architecture and facades in your daily experience? For
It's starting
me,
to
it
be.
wasn't
The
in
really
Australia.
interesting thing is I just went to a circularity conference in New York, and one of the presenters, Lisa, she presented Circularity, which was all about glass, and showed the same company that was presented in this course. And the person, I believe it was you who interviewed her, Linda. Um,
Yeah, Linda Hillebrand. Yeah, I
yeah,
know them.
so
Yeah, they're
it,
yeah,
it
nice.
was quite remarkable to go to a conference, see Linda and see the glass separating presented, and then come to this course and then see the same person.
Yeah, Lisa and Linda are very big in the German community there. I would even say Europe community about circularity and glass. They're
Okay.
quite
Yeah.
famous.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was very interesting to see. What a small world.
that is cool.
Yeah, but I
I
think
think,
Lisa is in California, if I remember correctly. Linda is
Yes.
at the university in Aachen. Linda's in California.
Yeah.
correct.
Lisa has worked as a consultant on our project on many of our projects. So I'm very familiar with her. Yeah.
That's great. Small world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's the fun
Yeah.
thing about facade world. It's yeah, like you said, Nathan, it's so small.
Hmm. Very surprising.
But also back to your detail,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know of any systems that are of this, that are like this. That's not to say it's not possible or not
Yeah.
doesn't exist, but I've got no idea. But yeah, I'm not too sure of systems. Maybe that's a nice thing to research. Um,
Hmm.
I'd be really interested to know. I haven't seen anything like that. What I think of I could be wrong about Donald Murray's one in Dublin. I don't think it's structurally glazed. I think the toggle is purely the fixing with just a rubber gasket at the back. I could be wrong, but I believe that's what's
How
happened.
is the glass attached to the extrusion? Because it's a hand-drawn sketch, I can't quite tell.
Yeah, I said in my comment as well. I said it's a shame that our template made your drawing so small because it's quite a nice
Yeah.
drawing.
Yeah.
Um, let me think.
Yeah. I was trying to find, okay, the architects want to see only glass. Let's try and fit everything we can within the sight line and see how that would work. Um,
Yeah,
no, I haven't seen anything like this either. This very crude sketch is definitely all mine.
I think the toggle system works something similar to a stick system would, but you have the toggle instead of a screw into the frame. So you're sort of just, I believe the IGU spacer has something to accept the toggle,
I see.
and then that can't move because it's toggled into the glass. But I'm just trying to find a good photo.
Oh, well then there's already a solution.
Yeah, I mean, that's not to say you can't propose your own. Because it looks pretty interesting, the one as well.
Oh, well, that's quite nice.
I know I have in one of our lectures somewhere that there's an area on toggle fixings. I'll find it and I can somehow get that into edX. I'm not sure where, but I'll
You
somehow
would
get
just need
that.
to talk about the who did the picture. It's quite a
Yeah, exactly.
but there's something for on our side to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah, but I
Okay.
believe it's
Probably
purely
going to-
just the glass is in place and it's toggled, and that kind of pulls the glass to the gasket, which creates the
I
seal
see.
at the back, and then not enabling the glass to move out of where it is. I
So
believe is
what's
how it
up
works.
front is just a weather seal.
Yeah, I believe
Okay.
that's just a weather seal.
Okay.
In this one here. Yeah, this here I think is just purely your front seal, and then the gasket at the back, once it's compressed, becomes your rear seal, I guess.
I see.
I
Well,
think.
then I wonder if the weather seal could be replaced with a pushing gasket then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to me, maybe it's just an aesthetic choice. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I guess if you could push in some gasket and have it fit, maybe it would serve the same purpose. But this is recorded. I'm not sure. I don't know. But yeah, hopefully I can get an answer on it, how this detail works. Or hopefully Donald can get a closer look at what he's drawn.
Mhm. So Donald, if you're listening, please reply.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I hope that answered roughly that question.
It did, thank you.
And we can try and see what happened in edX, why the discussion post is missing.
I already wrote a note for me to SBM. Yeah. Looking at the clock with 3 more minutes, is there maybe a quick question from someone in the webinar? If not, that's also fine. If there's a question in 5 minutes and the webinar is over, just write us. We are replying. And yeah, then I think, Nathan, we can let it come to an end. The webinar, not the MOOC, of course.
Yeah, cool. Thank you everyone
yeah.
for the time. And
Yeah,
thank you
thank
for the
you all for
submissions.
joining. Yeah.
And I hope you're enjoying the course. That's the main part.
Yeah, and yeah, like I said before, it's about being creative and having fun with facades and thinking about new solutions and also learning from each other. This is why we decided on the Sketch Drive to have like a gallery of assignments, so you can also see what are the other learners in the course doing and how can we learn from each other, because this is just a big part of lifelong learning, is that we're not just in our tiny little bubble, but we're all together and we are communicating and finding solutions together.
Cool.
Nathan, you're nodding. That's
No,
a
I'm
good
saying
sign.
cool. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think I'll stop the recording now and say goodbye, and we'll see you in, I think, 2 weeks.
I think in 2 weeks. And then we're talking about the assessment part.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
It
it's 2
was
weeks.
then maybe as a final word, it was very nice seeing some of you and hearing your thoughts and also your ideas. And I'm very happy how passionate you are about facades. And I'm very much looking forward to the next webinar and your future assignments.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you. Yeah.